Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Spring Summit for us. We'll be looking at cybersecurity and fintech today. If I could have your attention, we're going to get started. My name is Scott Robinson. I've been here for about 5 years, and today represents one of our newer programs. Obviously, we have about 12 to 13 different industries we've been focusing on, but one very consistent challenge that we've seen is cybersecurity. And so with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our head of cybersecurity. He'll be leading this initiative moving on, so please help me in welcoming Nate Hinman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all very much for being here today. It's a very exciting day we have ahead of us. I know a lot of you came from far and wide, so there's plenty of coffee in the back if you're jet lagged. But yeah, let's get into it. First off, thanks again for being here. I'm really excited to be showing you the startups in Batch 1, who are all sitting over there in the corner. As a quick background, my name is Nate Hinman. I'm the head of cybersecurity here at Plug and Play. As many of you know, this is a new initiative that we just kicked off at the beginning of this year. We saw some very scary attacks transpire last summer. WannaCry, Equifax, Petya, you name it. Cybersecurity is becoming more and more important and a necessity for the organizations going forward. Let's see. A quick summary of the activities we've been up to over the past 6 months. This is not working. Okay. So we sourced over 300 companies for this batch from far and wide, not just the U.S., but globally. We selected 15 of these companies to join the program, and over the past 6 months, they've been tremendously active in engaging with our corporate partners, as well as our mentor and advisor network. As you can see, we did over 60 deal flows in the past 6 months. Those have led to over 10 POCs with our corporate partners. And we are also, as I said earlier, doing several mentor and advisor sessions. So we did over 50 for this batch, and we're continuing to grow our mentor and advisor network. These are thought leaders in the space, cybersecurity experts, and venture capitalists who are providing, dedicating some of their time to helping our cybersecurity startups grow, basically providing them with advice and guidance as they begin their journey to raising a Series A or a Series B. We currently have 3 corporate partners, RSM, US Bank, and Deloitte. We're continuing to grow this partner network and are excited to continue to grow it going forward. Additionally, I didn't mention this earlier, but our mentor and advisor network is constantly growing. So if you're interested in being an advisor to any of the startups in our cybersecurity program, please find me later. We'd love to connect with new people. Why isn't this working? So again, special shout out to US Bank, RSM, and Deloitte. They were the founding anchor partners for cybersecurity. We would not be here without you. So thank you very much for putting your trust in us and dedicating so much of your time to this program. So let's give them a warm round of applause. We're continuing to grow this corporate network, so if you're interested in cybersecurity, please find me. We always are looking for new logos and corporate partners to bring into the program. This is just a quick map of where our startups are headquartered. We look for the best cybersecurity companies in the world. So we're not just sourcing companies in Silicon Valley and in the US, but globally. So we have startups in this batch with offices in the UK, Finland, Israel, Singapore, and Canada. So about 1/3 of the companies in this program are international. I'd like to thank you guys all for making the long trip out here. Thank you very much. As Batch 1 comes to an end, it's important to set our sights ahead in preparation for Batch 2. So here are some important dates that we have circled for our next cybersecurity batch. Our selection day will be July 25th with orientation on the 26th. We're also going to have a focus week. We've soft circled the week of September 10th, where we'll have several deal flows, mentor sessions, group roundtable discussions, as well as maybe even a pitch contest or some other fun event. Our next expo is October 25th, and we'd love it if you could all be here for those events. So before I introduce you to the keynote we have here today, I'd like to congratulate the startups in Batch 1. It's been a pleasure working with you over the past 3 months, sorry. I'm very fortunate to be in this position, to be able to call most of you friends, and the energy you guys bring to your job is truly inspiring. So thank you very much, and let's give them a round of applause. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our keynote for today, Mr. Jim Flaging. Jim is currently a managing partner at Synergy Partners, an advisory firm focused solely on cybersecurity. Jim currently serves on the board of directors of several technology companies, including SailPoint, Tripwire, and Adaptive Mobile. Prior to starting Synergy Partners, Jim was a managing partner at the Chertoff Group, where he advised both enterprises and investors on their growth plans and investment strategies. Additionally, Jim has served as the CEO of cybersecurity and data management companies in the past, and we're very fortunate to have him here today. So let's give Jim a warm round of applause and welcome him.
Okay, let's see if I can manage both of these at the same time. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the first one, huh? Oh, already did it wrong. Good morning, everybody. Do you have any basketball fans in the audience? Yeah. Woo! Any Warriors fans? Yeah. All right. Oh, okay, conflict at the start. I've been a Warriors season ticket holder since 1989. You can call that commitment or insanity, probably a little bit of both. I calculated the other day that I've sat through over 500 losses, and there were years when you couldn't get a friend or a date. It was just really hard and lonely being a Warriors fan. But times have changed, haven't they, right? So the Warriors are really, really good. And a key person behind that is not the person on that page in front of you. It's a guy named Steve Kerr. So Steve Kerr joined the Warriors about 3-4 years ago, and it was deemed to be somewhat of a risky hire. He had never coached before, and he was inheriting quite a good team. So as fans, we were really curious about this guy. And he said, I've got 4 key management strategies that if we follow these, we're going to be wildly successful. And the first one was joy. Joy? Are you kidding me? Joy is a management strategy? And he went on to talk about compassion and mindfulness and competition. And I think there's a lot of great lessons that any business leader can get from Steve Kerr. Now, I'm a hoops junkie, but this is not going to be the topic of today's talk. But I will talk about another topic that I'm passionate about, and that's security in the boardroom. And why does that matter, particularly for the companies coming through the program? It seems pretty obvious, right? If you can connect with things that matter in the boardroom, from both a capability and a positioning point of view, you're going to be more likely to win. You're going to be more likely to grow your business. And that leads me to a quote from another sort of basketball luminary. Does anybody know who Bobby Knight is? All right. So Bobby Knight, probably one of the greatest coaches in college, Indiana, was known for what? A really fiery temper. So imagine this big guy standing over you, probably screaming to his team, going, if you want to win, you have to prepare to win, not play, prepare to win. And I love that quote, which kind of goes over your head the first time, because what he's saying is the little things make the difference between being in the league and being the best in the league. And I think back to what we're here to do today and in this program is do the little things that can separate you from the rest and build a rapidly growing and a profitable business. And so those are some of the sort of things that I want to focus on today, particularly for the entrepreneurs in the room. And one of the first questions is security a boardroom priority, and how do we make it one? Now, a few years ago, the answer to that question was pretty darn simple. No, it's not. But things have changed, and Nate was talking about that a little bit earlier. Last year with Petya and WannaCry, there's a couple very interesting things that came from that. Merck, FedEx, and several others had to make material disclosures for a change in their outlook for the year in revenue and profitability. That gets investors' attention. Then towards the end of the year in the Equifax hack, and then really the poor job management did afterwards, including some insider trading that went on, that woke up the folks at the SEC. And in the middle of February of this year, the SEC came out and issued some pretty strong language that said for directors at public companies, you are accountable to ensure that you're both aware and disclose cyber breaches. And as directors, that's beginning to get people's attention. Then a month later, one of the SEC directors came out, this is the end of March, and sort of took it one step further. He said that, quote, cybersecurity is the top corporate governance issue today, hard stop. And that we're going to do more from the SEC. We're going to put real teeth in requirements for directors around disclosure, insider trading, and internal controls. That's pretty big, and I can tell you from personal experience, that's got attention that we're going, what do we need to do? So with those kind of tailwinds, you would think the time is beginning to be right that we're going to get more attention for this topic at the boardroom. Now, I'd like to sort of back up the bus a little bit and sort of frame, well, what does management do vis-a-vis boards, and what do boards really care about? So to be clear, management runs the business. They lead and run operations. And boards generally consist of people from three groups: the owners of the business, the management team, and then outside directors. And boards care about a lot of things, but I think you can net it down to three: risk management, value creation, and metrics. And in risk management, that means financial risk, operational risk, reputational risk. That one has certainly been in the news in the last several months. And then, yes, cyber risk. And when it comes to risk, the way that we look at it is the following: which we can eliminate, which we can mitigate, which we can accept, and then what we will transfer through insurance. And when it comes to value creation, that's fun, right? That's that stew. It's that mix of the market opportunity, the team, the strategy, and then, of course, execution. And then execution leads to the last thing, and that's metrics. Now, any dumb fool can measure things. That's not really that tricky and interesting. It takes a real art to know what to measure. What is the short list of things that really matter? And for any growth stage company, it's about growth. Growth is like water, it's oxygen. And you've gotta grow. And I think that as young companies, what's really key is that we focus on the short-term elements of growth, leads and pipeline and leading to closure, but also the long-term, that Stephen Covey thing, start with the end in mind. And I'm going to hit on that theme as we continue through. Now, when talking to senior executives about the topic of cybersecurity, sometimes the eyes glaze over. And so I thought, we got to come up with a better way to do this and develop something that works for me and it works for some others who have tried it, is to enter into the discussion with something called the 3 T's of the digital economy, and that's technology, threat, and trust. And why is that? These are 3 big interrelated ideas that together have a profound impact on strategy, on policy, and on public opinion. So I would ask that everybody, when you leave here today, at least be aware of the 3 T's, but perhaps do more. If you're leading a business, I'd like you to think about what is your business doing to leverage that first one, and its technology, to better react to the second one, and that's threat, and then to shape the third one, and that's trust. So let's take a double click as we look through that, and it starts with technology. Now, maybe because I've lived in Silicon Valley too long, I'm kind of breathing the exhaust here, but it seems pretty clear to me that we are living in the golden age of innovation. I mean, it's never been anything like it. And on that diagram on the right, you could put a bunch of different things, but cloud, mobility, AI, open source, social media. Now we're talking about DLTs and blockchain. It really is a great time, and it's a challenging time if you're leading a business. But it seems clear that now is an imperative that you've got to re-examine how we deliver goods and services, how we interact with our customers and our stakeholders, and in some cases examine, do we still have a business? I mean, consider, do you want to be Blockbuster or Netflix? That proud owner of a New York City taxi medallion, remember when those were going for $250,000 each? Or an early investor in Uber? You see, it's kind of clear. The winners are going to be those who leverage technology to create lasting competitive advantage. But this golden age, it has a dark side. You see, it's enabled a new class of bad actors who are taking advantages of these new platforms because security has not been built in. It's been bolted on after the fact. Okay? And this event is taking the effect of cyber breaches, which if you just follow the line, as we all know, way, way past the days when people did this for fun or for kicks or for embarrassment or even simply to steal information and for financial gain. We're at the onset of things that look really, really scary, is that it could be to destroy the earnings or the overall fabric of a company, or perhaps even undermine an entire sector like the electric grid or the water system and things like that. So it requires us to think about this problem in a new and different way if you're in the government, if you're leading an enterprise. Now, one of the effects of threat, sadly, is an erosion of trust. And I've heard people say that we're living in the age of uncertainty. Citizens don't trust government, consumers don't trust business, government doesn't seem to trust anybody. And we all know how important trust is for any relationship. So as a leader, you can think about what can we do to enhance trust, be seen as a good stakeholder. There's an area for advantage if we can do that. So it's an introduction to the 3 T's. Now, in 2017, when I was at the Chertoff Group, my team decided to really dig into this question and really understand what's going on with security in the boardroom. And we had interviews with well over 100 leaders, and we had senior people in the firm conduct the interviews, each over an hour long. 40% of the people were responding as a board director. The balance was predominantly C-levels, not technologists, although we did have some CISOs and CIOs in there. Public companies, private companies, Europe, North America, Asia-Pac, Latin America, and across a number of industries. So let's take a look at some of the things that we found. Maybe not surprising is that we found a consistent and deep cyber knowledge gap. And this wasn't us evaluating or quizzing people. It's what people said, hey, I don't know enough about this. And the more senior people got, the less prepared they felt to have a coherent conversation on the topic. And some of the quotes were a little bit chilling. Again, maybe not surprising. You know, hey, we're kicking the can down the road. We're getting desensitized to this. And we don't really feel like there's a good source to turn to, either from the media or the management consultancies. So we're looking for better answers. Now, as we parse that data a little bit more closely, we saw a tale of 2 cities, a tale of 2 cyber cities. And on the left was the good news, if you will, maybe promising. And this was Fortune 500, obviously public, companies in what would be called critical sectors, critical infrastructure, finance, telecom, technology, healthcare. And there, the directors said, yeah, we've been talking about cyber at the board for years. And it's in the context of a risk management discussion. And some even said, we've moved beyond risk, and it's now in a discussion of business continuity. And said, well, how do you folks learn? How do you get smart on cyber? And they generally said 2 answers, which were a little bit surprising. The first, they said, we learn from just being on other boards. So we talk to a peer group, we get a little bit kind of at each board, and we bring that to the table. The second thing is, we have good CISOs, and we really like it when they share stories that are in context. This is something that impacts our industry. This is something that will impact us. And it seems natural, right? Sometimes it's easier to grok something new with a good, colorful story about it. And that's a bit of advice I have, I think, when you're presenting up the line. Don't, particularly to CISOs presenting to boards, be careful about too many metrics. Now, the bad news, although I would call it the opportunity, is everybody else. And this was companies outside the US, smaller companies, even public companies in non-critical sectors. And there they said almost universally, cyber's never on the agenda. And I can vouch for that on the boards that I've been on. We had to force it on the agenda. And people said, if it's ever on the agenda, it's in response to a breach. And it's like, how quickly can we get this off and move on? I thought another correlation that I didn't put on the chart is that very few of these directors could name their CISO or even knew if they had one. So interesting facts there. So coming out of this, I thought there's an opportunity to do more. And what if a lot of the focus seems to be on CISOs, how to prepare to the board, how to do this, but what about for board directors? How do you really help them figure out what their job is in cyber? And so developed this thing called the Cyber Blueprint for Board Directors. And it said, it's a 7-point model broken into 3 categories. And on the one on the left is things that management leads. And this is really the fundamentals of a risk management program. The first is a core or a foundation, then measurement and response. The second is categories that the board is really well suited to lead, not own, lead. And that's in culture and people. And then the final is one that's more of a shared responsibility, and we'll dig into this, about externalities and foresight. And it's really about awareness overall. So if we click into that and look at some of the core questions in each area, the first one is simple. What are we trying to achieve? What is the purpose of our cyber risk program? Do we want to be best in class? Do we want to be top quintile? Do we want to tie it to other financial or operating metrics? What are we trying to achieve? Let's be clear on that. Have we prioritized our risks? Do we know what our crown jewels are? And are we using the right governing model to chart down this path? And then in the second, in measurement, I think there's a lot of questions behind it, but the most important is, do we know what success looks like, right? That end in mind. Where are we going? And then do we have the proper controls in place that are widely understood, uniformly measured, that can chart that course? And then finally, in response, the first question is, can we execute? Can we do this? Can management actually execute and make it happen? And then have we tested this program and assumptions so it's not a hope? We have a reason to believe in the fact that we can do it. Then on culture, do you remember those Rob Lowe ads where it said, like, don't be like this me? I love those ads. First, Rob Lowe, pretty cool guy. And I'd say when we talk to companies, if the person who cares most about cyber in your business is the CISO, don't be like that me. You don't want that. That's bad. This needs to be on the top 5 of the CEO. You need a CEO-led culture that appreciates cyber and privacy, because when that happens, the following other things happen. You begin to recognize things like good cyber hygiene in recognition or other ways of doing it. You begin to weave it into your value creation objectives. If you're going to go spend $500 million on a digital transformation effort, launch up a new data center, switch to a new ERP platform, the people who are accountable for that, the business unit heads, should have security objectives written right in at the core. That's not just those people down the hall in the security organization. Then in people, some of the things are ultimately, do we have confidence in the person that's leading this program? And then from a training point of view, do we have effective training? Is it properly funded? Because people are so scarce and hard to get, do we have these people with the right pay and incentive plans? Now, the area over on the right, many small companies say, this isn't me, but I would ask you to think about this, is the externalities. Are you aware of and participating in the regulations and policies that are coming your way? GDPR is one example, and I'm looking through out there, I can see that some of the entrepreneurs are zoned in on that. Are you aware of things in current events that could impact the systemic risk to your company? And then, of course, third-party and supplier risks. Anybody who sat on an audit committee knows that that is a very present topic for your advisors right now. And then on foresight, This is really, hey, do we have a culture where we can see around corners, an appreciation for knowing what we don't know? And then do we have real partners, not vendors, but a few partners who can take us on this journey? Because this is a really hard topic for most firms to staff and manage on their own. So that's a little bit of the blueprint, and hopefully that's helpful as you're thinking about the ways that boards may be looking at this issue. So kind of taken to the next stage here, and sort of the last module of this talk, is if you think about those 3 T's and you think about technology, your customers are on a journey, and they're on a journey to create competitive advantage. Where does security fit in? And I thought a way that it might be helpful is let's look at past, present, and future, some of the macro IT issues that perhaps will give you some insights into how to think about where your company may fit in. So these are a little busy, but if we look at the customer environment from yesterday, and you follow with me from the right side, at the C-suite level, security, no one cared. If you were outside of a large business, a very large company or government, it just wasn't really a C-suite issue. The compute environment was largely on-prem or in a private cloud. One of the things that we were dealing with was mobility, really, the onset of BYOD and connecting people into our enterprise. For the security jocks, we all lived in this world of strong walls, network security, keep the bad guys out. And what we did, and I led a company that did this, is we analyzed logs, we correlated events, and then we wrote signatures to those threats to prevent that bad thing from happening. Some important building blocks around data security and identity weren't really in the conversation. Identity was still more of a help desk issue, password reset. Encryption was limited maybe into financial systems and parts of the intelligence community. We really didn't have widespread use of encryption. And compliance, we were kind of dealing with Rev 1.0 and the different regimes from SOX, PCI, and HIPAA, but it was driving IT spend. Now, fast forward to today, things look a lot different, don't they? As we're talking about, the executive suite is aware of security, see it as a business risk. They may not totally get it yet, but that's coming. And the cloud really is changing, quote, everything. We're still largely centralized compute, but it's centralized with nodes of compute as we put key applications like mail, CRM, HR, and even security and IT into the cloud. Now, from a security point of view, this means a couple things have fundamentally changed. This whole metaphor of keep the bad guys out, that's tostada. We're done with that. There's now a recognition that the bad actors are in the network, and they're actually look like and try to behave like valid users. They compromise credentials. They act like valid users. So the ball has shifted from a prevention to a focus on detection, looking for anomalies in behavior and then putting the proper controls or next steps around that. And that you could argue that now the security perimeter is identity. It's identity. And identities are more than people. They're things. They're robotic processes. And we're seeing much more widespread use of encryption and other data security techniques because people say, that's the crown jewel. I want to make sure that's secure at risk and while it's in movement. And then compliance sure has changed. It's compliance/privacy. As regimes like GDPR take effect and citizens are going to start to stand up and say, hey, I want my right to be forgotten. And if you don't do it, I want my regulators to have financial teeth to go after the bad companies who don't enforce it. And we're seeing similar things kick in Singapore, Australia. The Chinese have their own interesting way of doing things. But we're going to see more of these kind of citizen-focused compliance regimes. And then where is this heading? So a couple things that I think are interesting to consider is, first, at the C-suite level, boards and CEOs will get this. This will become a competency in the boardroom, and it will be a risk that they will manage on an equal par with others. If you just look at those comments from the SEC and others, you'd be crazy to not enter down that path. But I think the leading organizations will do one step more, is that they're going to begin to understand security and privacy as a source of value creation, and that's going to change how they invest and what percent of their overall IT investment goes into these technologies. Now, I think the biggest change that we're heading to is, for those of you old enough will remember this, we're heading back to distributed computing. It's not going to be centralized compute, it's distributed. Some of the tectonic shifts that are driving that include things like IoT, hundreds of billions of chatty things, some intelligent, some not, but they're data generating things. AI, the ability to do very intelligent analysis and to do that on the edge, and there's companies that are pioneering that. The ability to use peer-to-peer communications, things like blockchain and other DLTs, are all going to drive us to more communication at the edge. Now, from a security management point of view, I think there's going to be, you got to think about this and go, this is still too damn hard for most companies, and the threats are only going to get harder. So it seems that security has to get delivered more as a utility. And it's got to be delivered from the infrastructure you get from a Google or an Amazon or others. It's got to be delivered from the applications that you rely on to run your business or the payment systems that you use to conduct your financial business. And then we're going to see far more interesting MSSPs. That's a mouthful, but that stands for Managed Security Services Provider. People who can do this from the cloud. And some of the things we'll begin to hear about is, with regard to identity, is a zero trust environment. You can't trust an entity until you've proven that they are to be trusted. And that's going to have even more widespread use of data security, tokenization, encryption, and greater use of certificates for all these devices on the edge. So the final bit here really isn't about compliance. It's maybe more of a policy prediction. Is, you know, in the last, 2-3 months, tariffs and trade wars are really in the news. I think what we're going to find in the news in a couple of years is data wars. And countries are going to use privacy regimes as a central part of their economic policy to sort of bend agreements because they're going to realize that data is a critical asset and they don't want to see it siphoned off and sort of monetized just by some large US companies. We're going to begin to see some interesting dynamics around that. So, kind of in conclusion, if we come back to that quote, actually, let me hit this. I was going to blow by this one. If I have the one chart that I like to use in the boardroom, it's this. And it's a way to talk to directors and kick a conversation off. It starts with the 3 T's on the left: technology, threat, and trust. How are we as a firm looking at this, leveraging it, reacting to it, shaping it? And can we answer key questions like, who has access to data? What are they doing? How is it used? Are we safe? Are we good stewards of information? And if we can check, I would bet you have a correlation to growth. You have a correlation that we're more resilient to risk. We probably have an operation that's running more efficiently. And ultimately, it's going to be innovative and it's going to be longer-term profitability. Those are good things. So if I was an entrepreneur today, I'd be thinking about some of these messages and capabilities and how do I align my firm around that. So in conclusion, we talked out front about hoops, which I'm a massive hoops fanatic. I love to think about basketball and business. And that Bobby Knight quote, prepare to win. Now, it's really key when you're getting a business, it's about growth, isn't it? And businesses can be good about, we got to create MQLs, marketing qualified leads. We got to convert those to SQLs, sale qualified leads. Got to advance them through the pipeline. Got to build growth and revenue. But many times what they forget is the long run. How do you operationalize your exit? How do you operationalize your exit? And I think every firm, you got to think, who are the big brothers that need us? They don't know they need us. And then how do we reverse engineer that into operating plans in year 1, year 2, year 3 of the firm? Because you want to create optionality. And you want to create optionality. So anyway, those are a couple of ideas. Hopefully they're helpful. And we have a few minutes if anybody has questions. But thank you. Warriors in 6. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jim. That was great. So we're going to kick off here with the very first startup pitch. We're welcoming Bob Trevelyan from Actifile. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome this morning. It's a pleasure to be up here first. It's a pleasure to be part of Plug and Play again. I've been here before, and really excited to be part of the cybersecurity group here. I represent a company called Actifile. We are an Israeli company. We are seriously focused on protecting the information flow around your business. And as we move forward in that arena, and where'd the clicker go? Sorry. And picking up on what Jim was saying a while ago, there's a number of changes that are going on in the business that we see. One is the fact that the whole way of doing business is changing. We are moving away from full-time employees towards contingent employees. We're moving away from a static environment to an environment where we have mobile forces, where our employees are mobile and moving around the world. We're seeing in statistics here in Gallup survey that workforce is changing at double-digit growth rates, but yet by 2020, which is only 2 years from now, almost half, 43% of the workforce will be contingent. So in other words, not an employee. So that's a big issue for everybody. And when you start looking at the mobile side, where are people working today? They're not working behind the corporate firewall, inside the corporate office. They're out there in coffee shops and libraries and whatever. The big problem that we see in the marketplace is, what do you do with bring your own devices? That's a challenge, because as the workforce changes and as more and more data gets moved around and more data lives on non-company assets, so bring contractors and mobile employees using laptops or other devices, downloading information, that's a problem. And on top of all of that, the customers remain to be the weakest link. Now, the issue with the customer is not so much that, the user is the weakest link, but it's not so much that the user is a bad link, but it's the fact that that is accelerating. Our growth towards users outside of the corporate firewall is growing tremendously. So we all thought the problem was solved. We put millions of dollars into things like DLP, into rights management, into VPNs, all that kind of effort to try and protect the information in the environment. When you start looking at DLP, a lot of that's not possible, because a lot of that information now is residing on non-company assets. So how do you impose classifications on a third-party laptop or a third-party vehicle? When you start looking at the overall core suite, there's too many holes in it now, because there's too many openings where data is slipping through into the public domain. So if you look at data overall, I mean, we take a lot of information from our data warehouses, from our internal systems. We access that information, we bring it together, we do things with it. The people that are working with that data are doing what we want them to do. They're analyzing the corporate information, they're making good decisions, they're doing the best thing possible with the data, but in order to do that, they're gathering data internally and externally. They're mixing multiple types of data together, multiple types of information together, and quite often creating things that are actually much more sensitive than they were in the beginning. Then they take all of those efforts that they do and store them in some sort of a document or a file of some kind, a PowerPoint or a Word document, whatever it might be. And those files are living on typically third-party environments. So what we want to bring together is, is the fact that the environment now is, we want to identify the information and data and where it leads and where it's going. We want to be able to look at the source, look at the people's actions, and then lock down that data once it's through. So what we do as an organization is we actually encrypt the data when it is downloaded to the device, and that data remains in an encrypted state on that device. To answer a question I had yesterday, if you travel to a foreign country with your laptop, what happens if that data on that computer, is it accessible? And without having a password approach, and there's some ways we can do that in different ways, like single sign-on, we protect that data. So what we do is is really augment your security suite as it stands today and provide you with a fantastic opportunity to be safe and have your data safe. So a good example here is, you're trying to work on your end stuff. You're working with a consultant. He downloads information, sends you a report. You get the report. But does he protect the data and safeguard it? So that's us. We're Actifile, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, Bob. Up next, we have Ian Smertzel from Dispel. Fun fact, Ian used to be a rocket scientist. Now he's a CFO.
I'm going to get the guy who actually put that in as my fun fact, because that's not entirely accurate. But anyways, hi guys. My name is Ian Schmertzler. I'm the president and CFO of Dispel. We are a cyber defense firm based on the East Coast of the United States. We have roughly 35 employees. We've been in business and selling products since 2015. This is the heritage of our lead engineers. The most important thing, though, that I want you guys to take away from this slide is that we're real. Tens of thousands of people rely upon our product working every single day. So when a company calls us up and buys a product from us, it's usually for one of three reasons. They want to protect some system that is unpatched or unpatchable. They want to protect the things that give their firm intrinsic value, be that an IoT ecosystem, data, communications, or people. Or they just want to work safely with a firm that they don't completely trust. So first off, why are these still problems? For lack of an alternative option, cyber defense has been an exercise in building castles. And then over time, adding more and more walls to them, maybe a maze, maybe putting a scout out in the field. Two observations about castles. First of all, they don't move. And second of all, they're really easy to find. So if you give someone enough time, they're going to find your castle, and then they're going to watch it until they find a way to break in, as illustrated by this Trojan turkey. I got a smile out of that. That's good. Okay, the important point from all of this is we've known it's a bad idea for a long time. There hasn't been an alternative. In traditional warfare, the solution has been to take the things you care about most, put them in a vehicle, and move them around, preferably in a medium which keeps it hidden. A perfect example of this is a submarine. Dispel's intellectual property allows us to build the equivalent of a submarine, but in cyberspace. The main difference is we aren't hiding something in an ocean, we're hiding it in the cloud. So what does that look like? Of course, this is a high-level diagram, but use some imagination. That atom symbol, that's what you care about. I'll tell you how you actually put that stuff in there in a minute. That hull, that's the hull of your submarine. In network speak, what is that? Those are cloud servers. And if you were to look at this network over time, it would be changing constantly. Now, at 7 a.m., you might have a Vultr server, a Google server, an Azure server in there. By 9 a.m., you get the point. I see some nodding heads. So the main thing is, though, you aren't going to be needing to see this. Some engineers we sell this to really want to. But for the most part, you don't worry about all this. And from an attacker's perspective, they don't see this network. What they see, instead of your organization's entire network, are individual machines connecting to completely disassociated cloud servers and looking an awful lot like someone who's watching Netflix, checking out Facebook. You get the point. So what this does is it takes that whole defense paradigm that you had before, where you've built yourself a castle and now you've got to wait until someone comes and pokes at it, and you flipped it on its head. The attacker is constantly running around, having to not only map your system, but redevelop the attacks that they were going to launch into it once they find it. And from a perspective of investment and where our product sits relative to most everyone else, almost every cybersecurity product on the market right now is in the red zone. They assume that you have got a cannon pointed at you and it's firing at you. And that's a reasonable assumption these days. We sit out at the reconnaissance stage. So if you guys haven't had an opportunity to listen to General Keith Alexander, former head of the NSA, he talks about where they put their resources. They put most of their resources into reconnaissance because that's the hard part. It's not the weaponization phase. So I hope that you're all thinking that's really cool. I'm also assuming that you're thinking that's pretty complicated. We wouldn't be in business if it was complicated for you guys. Launching one of these networks and then setting it up takes less than an hour. And from the perspective of how do you connect to one of these things, If you've got hardware, we just plug something into it, good internet in one side, bad internet out the other, you're safe. Alternatively, if you've got an IoT ecosystem, we can do this with a line of code. And if you have people who actually like downloading apps, most people don't, you can download it, push a button, and you're in. As to what you can put in one of these things, the example I like to use is the stuff that we won an award from Gartner for, which is our collab suites. That's when you want to work with a company that you don't particularly trust. We can cram into one of these things a data room, telephone servers, video conferencing systems, a messaging room, a log server underneath it all to watch, and then virtual desktops to do the work without needing to leave the box. So the next time you're thinking about protecting an unpatched or unpatchable system, or you want to protect the things that give your firm the value that you so hope to keep, or you're just trying to collaborate with someone you don't completely trust, before you go and build another wall, think about giving us a call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. One quick announcement. Oh, thank you. One quick announcement I forgot to make earlier on the badges that you have. There's a link to our voting app, so please use that to vote for your favorite startup. We'll be giving an award at the end of the day or end of the session, and we need you guys to vote. So up next, we have Ty Lambo from Cloud eAssurance. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Nate. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Based in Atlanta, Georgia, the home of Coca-Cola, CNN, Delta Airlines, and the world's busiest airport. So take a journey with me. So imagine you're flying from Atlanta to San Jose, as I did last night. And we decide to go for some adventure, right? And we decide to jump off of the airplane. Skydiving, right? We need one thing to make it safe and secure. We need a parachute. Cloud eAssurance essentially provides that parachute to make it safe and secure to jump into the IT cloud. So why do we exist? We're driven by the belief that cloud security breaches could be predicted and could also be prevented. According to Gartner, by 2020, 95% of cloud security breaches will be the customer's fault. So it will be your fault as an enterprise, or it could be your fault as a consumer. We're here to solve that pain point. So we've seen a number of cloud security breaches in the past 5 years since we launched. By 2020, the cloud security market will be worth $8.9 billion with a B. A lot of the major cloud service providers have actually done a good job of securing their infrastructure. But it's like renting like an apartment in an apartment complex, right? You're going to rely on your landlord for physical security into the building. But they're still going to give you the keys, and you need to keep your apartment safe. So that's where we come in. We have a strong management team. I'm the founder and CTO of the company. We have an advisory board made up of CISOs, CIOs, some serial entrepreneurs as well. We're essentially the first security rating service. We focus on cloud. We were told by Gartner we were 5 years too early when we launched. Over that 5-year period, we generated roughly $1.5 million from a market that doesn't exist. So we were also Gartner Cool Vendor. They looked at about 400 companies, and we're one of the 4 that made Cool Vendor. So essentially, we have a SaaS platform. We also have a mobile platform. The SaaS platform pretty much allows you to assess your security program. It's standards-based. It's controls-based. So the presentations before me kind of talked about everybody moving to the cloud and cloud security becoming a big deal. We actually address that through our SaaS platform. So customers could go in and assess themselves and get a rating, or we could assess them independently. We also have a mobile app that allows us to publish our ratings. We have about 10,000 cloud services in our ratings database. So these are cloud services we've independently rated, mostly running on Amazon, Microsoft, Azure, IBM Cloud, as well as Google Cloud. So our rating, kind of our mobile app, allows insurance underwriters to have some visibility into how risky some of these cloud apps are and to determine whether it's a safe cloud or a bad cloud. So how do we do what we do? It's kind of almost like a FICO score, you know. It's a scale of 0 to 1,000. The higher your score, the higher your maturity. Also, as your score goes up, your breach probability actually goes down. We've actually been very, very good at predicting whether our customers are going to have a breach or not, almost to the point where we can say, hey, based on your score, within 12 to 24 months, you're going to experience a major security breach. And obviously, we give them a plan to actually get better, to reduce their breach probability. So we call that a continuous improvement plan. How do we compare to our competitors? I kind of skipped the previous slide, but we're standards-based. So we cover 20-plus control-based standards for cybersecurity. Our competitors cover some of them partially. We actually cover them entirely. We have customers from startups to Fortune 500 companies. How do we intend to scale? So in the past 5 years, we've figured out where our sweet spot is, kind of our niche. You know, it's basically SaaS companies running on public cloud platforms, basically the top 4, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and IBM Cloud. Last year, we assessed 10 of those companies. This year, we're looking to assess 100, and we're looking to scale that to 7,000 within the next 4 years. Nate's going to be providing this slide deck. Love to talk to you. Please feel free to reach out and also sign up for our mobile app. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ty. Up next, we have Gabriel Tremblay from Delve Labs. Fun fact about Gabe, he's a very funny person. So tell some jokes. All right.
Hi, I'm Gabriel, CEO of Delve Labs. Our product, Warden, revolutionized the way we find and prioritize vulnerabilities in today's network. So, as you may all know, it just doesn't, yeah, okay. As you may all know, security incidents and attacks are on the rise. We're not winning the game, we're losing the game. These are numbers that you've seen, but typically there is an increase in data leaks, there's an increase in number of leaks, and it's not getting better. And if we look at these kind of leaks, when we look at the source or the problem behind it, most of the time when these attacks happen, these leaks happen, we're not speaking about 0 days or super sophisticated hackers. Most of the times, these attacks are conducted using old vulnerabilities, things that your solution that you already have in place should have found for a while, since a while. And speaking about these solutions, the market today is dominated by 3 players in terms of detecting vulnerabilities. You get Tenable, Qualys, Rapid7, and there's other scanners that you can use, but mainly this is it. And when you look at what the companies have to say about their solution, you see that the dissatisfaction rate toward their solution is as high as 50%. So everybody uses these solutions, but without liking them, they're not effective. And the reason is quite simple. Scanning for vulnerabilities is more than just scanning for them. It's a complete process. You need to figure out what you have on site, and it's something hard, figuring out what you have, which website you expose, which data, which device exists. For everything you find, you need to figure out the best way to assess the security. So in today's network, you may end up with a Qualys for your website, with a Tenable for your server, and I don't know what for your IoT device. Once you get that running, you need to do these scans once every week to be relevant. And this kind of activity will generate a tremendous amount of information that you need to look at, understand, and take decision with that. It is excessively difficult. So if you look at today's world, most large corporations won't do more than 40% coverage in terms of vulnerability detection. In fact, and it's a bit of Gartner's planning there, but current threat and vulnerability assessment solution is proven to be ineffective. And for that reason, we created Warden. And Warden is the first solution That starts with the discovery of everything you get, continuously, 24/7, figuring out what new appears on your network at all time, figures out what's the best way to assess the security given what we found, takes everything together, apply machine learning to reduce false positive, does threat intel to tell you what to fix and for which reason, and all of this without any human intervention in any place in the process. So it takes the super complex process we've seen before and takes it to a very simple, streamlined, turnkey way of doing detection. Of course, to do that, we use AI. And AI is a broad word, but we'll say that for us, AI is more the glue that makes it possible than what a system is. So we'll use an expert system to learn about your environment, to get the context, to exploit from your context. We'll use deep learning. We'll use anything, any word that you've heard in the past month in terms of AI, but effectively in the key places. Basically, what Warden does is giving you, for the first time, this 24/7 view of everything you get in your network in terms of vulnerabilities. And this is what our client says. With Warden, they are now able to do much more with less people and with different people. So security experts that are super hard to find can focus on really important things, and analysts and management people can get results and know what to do. Well, and it goes along with what we know from the VA, VM, and source space. We need to use machine learning to make these menial tasks as effective as they are, and this is what we do. We apply the power of AI to fix vulnerability management. We're currently looking for a Series A of between 5 to 7 million Canadian, which is around $5 US. So if you're interested, send me a mail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabe. Up next, we have Certus Technologies. Jack Woloszewicz is the CEO. He was also a former rocket scientist as well. So here you go.
Yeah, for a little bit. First job out of school. Oh, my clicker. Thank you. We're Certus. We're in the space of user authentication without using any passwords. And there's a reason for that. It's because the USS cybersecurity is not doing very well. And the biggest iceberg in the seas is user authentication. It's responsible for about 80% of the breaches out there. So what we've done is we've tried to address the problem of essentially the use of passwords or any credentials, because credentials are things that can be stolen. Anything that's digital can be hijacked. And entire industries have been created around the fact that the password is such a train wreck. So these are basically just patches in the hull, shifting the seats around the deck on the Titanic. So the solution is a no credentials type of logon. It's a much nicer user experience. You don't have to remember anything. And you can provide multiple security, multiple factors of authentication. And here's just something that will show you what it does very quickly. All right, so what happened there was when you held up the app on your cell phone next to whatever device you're trying to log on to, you click on an icon on the browser web page, And what happens when you do that, that actually requires our server to send you a one-time code which is rendered into an audio signal by the browser, no add-ons, just HTML5 or Flash, and that signal is received then by the cell phone. The cell phone demodulates that and sends it back to the server to confirm both sides of the transaction. The important thing to notice here is that we're actually looking at both participants in the transaction. We're not just authenticating the user, we're actually authenticating the website as well. The team starts with me. I have a background starting with aerospace, but I've done a lot of work in digital signal processing, digital rights management, and Cypher. Howard Hall, my co-founder, has done a lot of work in business development and cybersecurity. He's the managing director of Consult Hyperion, one of the premier companies in the space of secure payments. Paul McGowan is a superstar on the sales side of things. And Andrew is a very experienced ops guy with a lot of experience in startups, Warby Parker being one of them. The whole concept revolves around one-time transaction codes, which are being transmitted ultrasonically between devices. That makes it very universal. It also shuts down one of the major attack vectors, which is Bluetooth, which is used for other forms of near-field communications. But the bandwidth that allows to happen is much higher than ours. We only transmit at about 100 bits per second, so there's really no way of hacking through that. It's more secure than biometrics because biometrics are still credentials that can be stolen, although biometrics can be an enhancement to our system as a second and third factor. And we address the IAM space, e-commerce, fintech, and also IoT because of the fact that we are based on a sonic code. We can authenticate right through smart speakers. And smart speakers, as all of you probably know, are the future of IoT. That's going to be the authentication hub and the control center for IoT. So authentication in that space is very important. The market is large. There are somewhere between 5 to 10 billion logons a day. And projected costs, if we drive them down to about a penny, would potentially be $50 million a day. So that's kind of the market that we address. Thanks very much. We're early stage, looking for mostly partnerships. Financing is always welcome.
Thank you very much, Jack. Up next, we have Andy Funk from Overwatch ID.
Push this forward and back. Yes. Yeah? Okay. How you doing? My name is Andy Funk. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Overwatch ID. We're solving the leading threat to enterprise security today. So all these logos you see up here have two things in common as some of the conversations we've been discussing, Anthem, Target, most recently Equifax, and apologize, I don't know if that's a corporate sponsor, but all have two things in common. Spent tens of millions of dollars on today's identity security countermeasures, and we're all breached anyway. And we're here to fix that problem. We see that as a major issue in the market today. There we go. I think it's important to talk a little bit about the evolution. We talked about the Zero Trust model and the 4 technologies you really need to integrate for the identity component of the Zero Trust model. Identity and access management came to pass since we had computers, username, passwords. Later we layer in multi-factor authentication, 5-digit PIN that comes from your bank or from Google. Privileged access management became commercially available for critical system infrastructure. We move more things to the cloud, as everybody keeps continuing to talk about, and CASB, Cloud Access Security Brokering, came to pass. If you're a CISO today for a large enterprise, you're kind of stuck to cobble together a CASB vendor, a PAM vendor, yet probably a third vendor for MFA, and maybe even a fourth for IAM. That's a very siloed point solution. Anybody that's tried to do a multi-vendor deployment in a complex enterprise environment knows that that's problematic, if not probably doomed to fail, and very difficult, and that means as well very long in deployment cycles as well. These technologies are really complex, take a lot of manual requirement, particularly around the PAM space, and that ultimately results in a very expensive total cost of ownership. So Enter OverWatch ID. We've purpose-built integrated platform that integrates identity access management, PAM, CASB, and MFA all into a single full-featured patent-pending solution. These are modular. I think it's important to note that. Our stuff plays well with others, so large enterprises will already have an existing MFA in place or a single sign-on vendor. Our stuff works well with that, so that's modular. We also solve one of the really big issues of deployment. Our stuff can be deployed in hours or days instead of months or even years as some of our competitors' products. Ultimately, that certainly ends in a better, lower total cost of ownership of our platform. So the market size, this is across these technologies, literally a $20 billion market today, growing with some figures as much as $36 billion by 2022. There's also a substantial amount of market that down market is kind of untapped because the technologies are so expensive today. There really is no product that fits from a deployment and cost standpoint for mid-market and even down to the SMB. The consolidation in this space is just validating for us. You hear about news every day about one vendor in one space acquiring another technology. That's validating for us and something we've seen coming since we started the business in 2016. Ultimately, some of the customer traction, we're getting some strong customer traction around this platform, literally deploying our software in hours on proof of concepts. A handful of these POCs are all under NDA, but we have verbal commitments for 2 Fortune 500 companies this quarter to close another couple accounts, and really seeing a lot of validation in the ability to easily deploy our software in literally hours, 500 servers versus competitors that might take months to deploy, lots of manual configurations. So little on the background, my team, I've been in kind of a startup environment for the past 20 years or so, and the managed services space, had one successful exit. That's where my co-founder and myself met, Cameron Williams. Cameron's the visionary on the tech side of this. He's been building security countermeasures for some of the world's largest companies for the last 20 plus years, Boeing, IBM, and likes of that. He's also probably on his 4th iteration of privileged access management, building those things internally before they were commercially available. So his background in building these technologies and the team that we've brought on from the R&D and dev side is what has developed the ability to get to market so quickly. Running our sales and marketing is a successful executive that's had a few successful exits himself. Scott Merkel used to run OEM and enterprise sales for Webroot, endpoint security product, and had an exit with a company called CleverSafe out of Chicago for $1.5 billion. Pretty strong team there. Go to market, we're leveraging our existing relationships, selling into those today. We continue to, that's not working. That didn't work. Okay, so we have about 10 focused resellers that are actually driving deals for us as well today. That's very strategic, and as we finalize our Series A money that we're planning to raise by Q3, we'll build out a more traditional sales, direct sales and marketing team. Sources and use of the funds, we've raised $3.5 million to date. We just closed out the latest price round, and we're on path to close out our Series A, about $5 million, well before Q3, actually, because we're finalizing a few term sheets right now, so potential term sheets. So just in summary, this is a huge market. This is the biggest issue, I think, for identity around building the zero trust model and integrating these technologies so they work and protect an enterprise. We've got some barriers to entry on how we built we have 4 provisional patents filed so far and moving those to full-blown. I have a team that's done this previously, and that's it in summary. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. So we're going to take a 15-minute break just to stretch our legs, get some more coffee, wait a little bit. For the late, check the back of your badge. There's a link there. We're using that link to vote for the best startup in the batch. So please vote and be back here in about 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Augustine Lim, he's the CEO of Digify. They used to be called the Snapchat of business for their self-destroying documents. That's the fun fact.
All right, thank you. Hi. So Digify is document security made simple. The problem that we solve is how to retain control of sensitive documents after sending. Today, after you send a sensitive document, basically it's not traceable. Sometimes it can be non-compliant. It can fall into the wrong hands and it's out there forever. There's no way of taking it back. So why is this problem hard? So if you think about it, today in enterprises and businesses, to solve the problem, you have to combine many different solutions in DRM, file storage, watermarking, file tracking, and this can be expensive, right, and time-consuming, and it can become difficult to integrate with your workflow. Often it's challenging for the recipients because they don't have the same set of tools that you have in your network. And competitors have been trying to solve the problem in many different ways, right? So there are DRM, there's email security, data rooms. And for Digify, we are a unified platform that has all of these features, right? And we simplify the entire process so that you only need to deal with one platform for document security. So other than being a unified platform, we also have technological advantages. We have a pattern in watermarking, and we have worked out various ways of protecting the content and having it go away. So one of our focus is have more integrations, because we realize that that's where your workflow, right? It will be your email, and we're also working on integrations with like Outlook, and we already have integrations with other cloud storage. So Digify is the winner of the RSA Innovation Sandbox, and the chief judge, the CTO of Symantec, said that we have proven ourselves to be a simple and inexpensive way of protecting ideas and information, and we have also won various international awards. So today we have more than 370 customers in various sectors in finance, education, healthcare, and we protect all sorts of files from engineering designs to pitch decks to investment materials. So one of our enterprise customers is WeWork. So WeWork actually had a data breach, and there were information leaked to the press, and it was pretty embarrassing, right? So they were looking for a simple and yet secure tool, and they have found Digify after looking at many different solutions. So for them, we actually provided the integration that they needed with various tools that they already have, and that is something that their staff will actually use. So today we are replacing different tools in WeWork, right? So we are replacing Intralinks in terms of their data room for their investment and real estate due diligence. We are functioning as an information rights management tool, so that when they share sensitive files with their staff, they can make sure that it remains within WeWork. And also they are using us as a means of secure communications with their landlords and the tenants. So the market that we're addressing is the data protection market, which is worth $58 billion, and we are focusing on a subsegment worth $2 billion. And we have been seeing like 12% month-on-month growth for the past 2 years. So the team, we are small but a complete team, right? And we are based both in Singapore and San Francisco. And our advisors include Lee Ting, who is a former board member of Lenovo, and Keith, who used to be SVP at Oracle, and Chris Ivdemon, who is a partner at Sinovation Ventures here. So they are investors as well. So why now? So with I think we have seen a climate of like increasing need for compliance, right? In terms of GDPR, HIPAA, FEPA. And I mean, for GDPR, there's also, the right. We also need to provide, consent and also the right to be forgotten. And Digify provides for a way to actually revoke access even after files are sent, or have them self-destruct. And also, I think current solutions are too difficult to use and implement, right? And I think there is no clear winner now in the data protection or document security space. And so right now we are seeking customers, right, especially in healthcare, finance, and education. And we're also seeking investors for funding for sales and marketing to accelerate our growth. If you're interested, please email me at augustine@digify.com. And thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Augustine. Up next, we have Simo Kohonen from Avis NetSec. Fun fact about Simo is his last job was carrying around heavy boxes in a remote warehouse in Finland. He says he prefers this line of work a lot more.
Thank you very much. All right, good to see you all. My name is Simo. I run a company called Avis NetSec. And today I want to talk to you about the most exciting subsector of cybersecurity, patch management. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is really boring stuff. But check this out. Over 80% of breaches still result from poor patch management practices, i.e., 4 out of 5 breaches could be stopped by efficient vulnerability management practices. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's way too simple to be true. And, you know, like everything else in life, this is also. But there are many issues in doing this right. First of all, from the time the vulnerability is published, this was a couple of weeks ago in RSA, the technical director of NSA indicated that they typically see an exploitation of this vulnerability, a weaponization of it, in about 24 hours. So that's quite a quick turnaround time. And I also know that when people talk about patching, you're in your head visualizing this, you know, Windows whole computer update sequence. Corporate patching is nothing like that. Even like vanilla corporate environments, much more tricky. And then you have environments like these, where you can have stuff that's running months old, years old, even decades old IT stuff that is really, really vulnerable to things. So this creates a pretty nasty situation. And basically, simplifying a bit, there are 2 different choices. You can keep your stuff exposed, or you can power your stuff down and take a hit in productivity. And more often than not, the option number 2 is actually more expensive than option number 1. And we end up in the current situation. Now here's the thing, wouldn't it be great if there was a third option? You could protect your stuff, but still take absolutely no hit in productivity whatsoever. And unsurprisingly, this is exactly what we want to help you with. So we have a quite unique approach to this. We combine vulnerability management with deception. As you can see from this fantastic animation that I've created, our magic machine here in the middle has the capability to ingest the vulnerabilities you have in your network and create appropriate-looking decoys with the exact same vulnerabilities just for the purpose of deceiving attackers. These decoys, of course, are, you know, completely secure. They won't jeopardize your production environment in any way. Consider the normal situation. As been indicated, you know, perimeters are leaking. There are attackers in your network. And basically what they have is direct access into your valuables. But also, if you are lucky and you detect them in time, they now have, at the minimum, a blueprint of how to iterate their attack again and again until they succeed. This is typically known as the asymmetry of cybersecurity, where defenders need to succeed, you know, from here to the end of time in order to win the game. But for attackers, it's enough if they succeed once, and then they win. And deception, of course, is a fantastic way to change this fact. The environment changes, it's now dynamic. Attackers don't know what's real and what's not, so they lose the advantage. In addition to that, it's also now far more likely at one stage or another, the attackers will burn their exploits in a decoy. For the attackers, of course, everything looks completely the same. So they don't know if something is a decoy or it's an actual production machine. The best thing about deception is that it is truly really quick to set up, like everything else. But, you know, for one network, it's typically, you know, 5, 10, maybe 15-minute job. So you can really do this stuff quickly. In addition to that, you don't need to change anything about your environment. It slides in right nicely just next to your real stuff, doesn't interrupt anything, works especially well in these kind of production environments where you just absolutely can't tamper with anything. I also mentioned we live in the sort of vulnerability management domain. And so there's another very tangible asset that we can provide, which is effectively creating a scoreboard of what vulnerabilities are being exploited at what time. This information is highly valuable for the vulnerability, fixing crews, patch management teams, who must know what is the most important thing to patch and what can wait for later. It is not uncommon for organizations to have 1 million vulnerabilities, literally 1 million at any time. So they need to know what to do in which order. So jumping back to the high level, you basically have this time frame where at one point you have a vulnerability that's discovered, then you have maybe a couple of days until there's an exploit. And observe this, the median time to patch your stuff is about 130 days. So you have this 120-something days of an exploit window where everything can go wrong. And of course, this is the problem that we want to solve with our product. Just briefly about us, we're a European company, have been in the cyber industry collectively for about 40 years. Obviously not me, because I was born barely in the 80s. And we're engaged with end customers, MSSPs, and also manufacturers, helping their IoT shipments to be more secure. Seed-funded and excellent advisory board. And like I said, very easy to set up, so pilots are quick to run. And yeah, if you have interest in this kind of stuff, please come and talk to me. Thanks a lot.
We have Neil Terry, the CTO of Eastwind Networks. Let's give him a warm welcome.
All right, I'm Neil Terry, CTO of Eastwind Networks, and I am not a rocket scientist. I apologize. Though I did do model rockets when I was a kid. Does that count? I don't know. So at Eastwind Networks, we focus on visibility-driven security. Back. Security, breach analytics, and investigation requires access to truth, access to the data. Multi-vector threats can go across infrastructure. The reconnaissance phase of the kill chain now targets cloud services and cloud infrastructure. Unified visibility into traditional cloud network data, together with activity logs from cloud services and cloud infrastructure in a single unified data set, is critical to threat responders. So these three sentences kind of describe the problem set that we're trying to solve. What this really means is, so take for example, you have a physical data center, and you need to go, I want to go in and I want to destroy all of my systems inside my physical data center. So I need my key card, I need my hand, so the attacker needs to chop off my hand to put it on the fingerprint scanner. He needs to know the combination to my rack inside the data center. But let's say I've already moved to AWS. What does the attacker need to do to destroy everything inside of AWS? Well, he needs my username and my password. And then with 3 clicks, he can go through and click terminate on all of my instances, and everything's gone. All of that activity that if my AWS credentials are hacked and the attacker is going through and doing some reconnaissance, all of that activity is logged in CloudTrail. But is anybody looking? Well, we're looking. We're putting that in our data set. We're looking for anomalies in behavior to see what's going on. So that describes what we're doing. What are our users saying? Peace of mind. Accountability to our stakeholders. Comfort and security. And then my favorite quote here. We have 53 paying customers, 14 engineers, and 0 sales and marketing staff. We are selling through word of mouth and through our MSSP partners. Our direct sales, people who buy our products directly, they buy our products to provide visibility into their network and their cloud infrastructure. Our MSSP partners deploy our product to upsell their customers with monitoring, threat detection, and remediation services on top of their existing offerings. We are raising money. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Up next, we have Nader Fatih, the CEO of Keyana. Nader is a serial entrepreneur. This is his, third startup that he's got? Second, okay. His last company was bought by Siemens, and he actually lives in Plug and Play. Warm welcome for Nader.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate, and good morning, everybody. I'm Nader with Keyana. Keyana, we are a 4-year-old company, and let's get physical. We're going to talk about something different today. So a little bit about our company. We are a bunch of AI and big data geeks. We have been doing this since 2001. All right, so let's move on, talk about what is it we do. And it's not moving. There we go. Great. So what we have built is we have built a very accurate real-time location services. We basically see all the devices, all the wireless devices, and all the Bluetooth devices. We have been doing this in over 50 countries worldwide. And then last but not least, we have about 400 million devices in our database. So again, a company which really knows how to deal with big data, how do you deal with it, and so on. All right. So how do we do this? We look at all the Wi-Fi-enabled devices. So this could be your laptop, it could be your Tesla car, and so on. Furthermore, we look at all the Bluetooth devices. So your Apple headset is Bluetooth,
The tires on your car have a Bluetooth. That's how they know that you're running out of air and so on. So again, we as a society generate lots and lots of data, and we grab this data. The other thing which is very interesting for us is this light bulb. So you see those halogen bulbs? The next generation of bulbs, not only they're putting LED in there, but they're putting Wi-Fi sensors and Bluetooth sensors. This gives me a very nice grid to do a very accurate analytics. Okay, so you all know about the issue, which is, unfortunately, we live in a very unsafe environment. By the way, this picture just shows you what has happened in mass shooting since 2015, just in the last 2 years, right? So over 200 people killed in the US, over 1,000 wounded, right? And by the way, this is mass shooting, right? You look at the paper, every day there's a shooting somewhere else. So, you know, unfortunately, we as a society has gone numb about this. We have been ignoring about, hey, there are bad actors out there, and how do we identify these people? So we said, you know what, we need to do something about this. All right. So if you look at security, and we did a lot of study on this, you see 3 pockets. And these guys don't talk to each other. You have the security guards walking around with a walkie-talkie. By the way, the turnover in that organization is 40%. It's a low-paying job. These guys, you know, they're interested to clock in and clock out. The second one, you see cameras, security cameras. Although they're getting smart, all they do a great job looking at your face, but really not a very good job at tracking what is happening. And then last but not least is IT folks. IT folks worry about cybersecurity. God forbid if somebody steals my money from my Bank of America, that's really bad. But if my kids are shopping at, let's say, a local mall and somebody blows up the mall or there's a shooter, that's a really bad thing. All right. So what is it we have done? All right. So first of all, big market. You all know this. This is a $31 billion market in U.S. By the way, average mall and a campus spending about $3 a square foot on security. So a lot of money being spent on this. So what is it we do? So we basically have this very accurate location system. We augment this with pictures, and we basically can do both forensic as well as a smart alert. So the example is if the bad guy shows up with a mask, your cameras are not going to help you. But guess what? They probably have some kind of a device in their pocket, and I bet you they were at your place maybe a week ago or a month ago. So you can go back in time and identify who the bad guys are. All right, so if you want to see if a company is serious, look at patents. By the way, one of the reasons Siemens bought my company last time was because of our patents. So we have 2 major patents in this area. Number one, we see all the devices, iOS as well as Android. The second one, tying this to other sources of data. So here is an example. I can look at the campus. I can see all my guards. I can also look at this person, Mr. Ko. He's a person of interest, and as he's walking to an area, I can turn on the camera and see what he's doing, right? So this is what we call both forensic and a smart alert. We are also very proud to announce that we have been working with the Department of Homeland Security for the last 12 months. We have 2 projects with DHS to secure you at your airports and also the 360 borders in U.S. So after the YouTube shooting, we're getting a lot of calls from corporate campuses. So if you guys are part of any corporation which need another layer of security, talk to me. And then the other thing I want to talk about is our ask. Our ask is that, A, we're looking for customers. We do not have a direct sales force. Today, this is sold through camera companies, through Wi-Fi companies, and like someone like Honeywell. Honeywell is in 600 airports worldwide, so we are very excited to work with them on some of the major airports. The second one is that, like any other company here, we're looking for investment on the right-hand side, you see who are investors. To summarize, we are disrupting the face of physical security. It's time to change that. We have a booth here. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so make sure you come and visit us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nader. Quick note, we will be voting soon, so please go to that link on the back of your badge. We're going to be voting in the next 10, 15 minutes. Up next, we have Danny Jenkins from ThreatLocker. Hey, Danny. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Danny Jenkins, CEO and co-founder of ThreatLocker. ThreatLocker is changing the traditional paradigm from only blocking known threats to only allowing trusted applications. Just a little bit about our team. This is our third cyber startup. We successfully exited 2 previous cybersecurity companies in email and content security. There's a real problem in businesses being unable to control what applications and software is running in their environments. This could include anything from Spotify to TeamViewer or to just malware or unknown malware applications. Businesses are having real challenges controlling that data. This ultimately leads to data breaches, downtime, unlicensed software, a loss of revenue, and potential fines and lawsuits. So how do we solve this problem? Well, whitelisting is not a new technology. It's been around for a long time. Yet we went out and interviewed dozens of companies and found that 80% of them don't make use of whitelisting to control what applications run in their environment. Yet 100% of them say the reason for that is it's too complicated and time is the biggest factor. Despite that, 70% of those companies we spoke to said they understand that they need to deploy whitelisting because they cannot control what's running at the moment and intend to do so over the next 2 years. So how have we solved this problem? Well, ThreatLocker has come up with an application whitelisting solution that's unlike anything else on the market. Unlike traditional application whitelisting solutions where you, as an IT manager or CISO, needs to list every single file and every single application that's running, ThreatLocker does this for you. We create application sets and update them automatically. So when applications are updated, you don't have to update the whitelist. And our approval process is 30 seconds long. If you think about this for a second, imagine you've got someone in your payroll department and they need remote support to their computer because the payroll software isn't running. With traditional whitelisting solutions, the process of enabling that remote support application takes 4 hours, and then that becomes permanent in the organization. With ThreatLocker, that process is 2 clicks and it takes less than 30 seconds. So how do we do this? Well, we have a file identification algorithm that builds applications together in combination with a SOC based in Florida that updates application definitions in-house all the time when they're updated. So it's not just us that's talking about whitelisting. All the industry experts agree that whitelisting is the future. Gartner say if you really want to control what's allowed to execute, you need to do more. For example, application whitelisting. NIST recommend implementing whitelisting across your organizations and mandate it for companies that do business with the federal government. So why now and not 5 years ago? Well, or 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you had a virus in your organization, it was a nuisance. If you had malware, if you had unauthorized software, it was a nuisance. The IT manager or the IT guy had to come out, rebuild the computer, uninstall the software. Now, we see real damage to organizations. We see ambulances turned away from doors of hospitals because of a ransomware attack. We see data theft that costs billions of dollars and other real damages. So businesses are having to turn to better solutions to protect themselves from unauthorized software. So our product was completed last December, and since then we've got 14 customers currently trialing the product and another 3 who have actually ordered already. Our target customers are small to medium-sized enterprises who can't afford big security teams to manage in-house whitelists. We're looking for additional customers, so anyone who thinks this might be a fit for their business, please reach out to us. So what about the market size? Well, the endpoint security market, the server security market, and the IoT security market are all affected by whitelisting and what controls what's running. Our primary target is server and service and endpoint security at the moment, but we're also working with some medical device companies about implementing it into their medical devices. The market's growing at a rapid rate, and it's expected to continue to grow. What about competition? Like I said, whitelisting is not a new technology. There are other vendors out there. McAfee is one of the stronger vendors who have been around for a long time. Their technology is used in a lot of ATM machines and static devices. They fail to deliver where it means desktops and in environments that are dynamic and need changes and updating on a regular basis. We are looking for an aggressive growth plan over the next 5 years, and we hope to be over $40 million in revenue. Okay, we're looking to raise our first capital. We're looking to a 1.5 million seed round, and we're looking for some angels or early stage investors to help start that round. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to us afterwards. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thank you very much, Danny. Up next, we have Carl Falk, the CEO of BotDoc. Fun fact about Carl is he once received the sexiest customer of the day discount at a Starbucks in New York City. I think he's lying.
Oh. No love. No love from Nate. All right. BotDoc is transporting documents and data with end-to-end encryption, which isn't necessarily novel, but we're doing it without PINs, passwords, accounts, logins, software, or apps. And after the payload is delivered, the container and the data inside of it evaporates. So we all have a problem. It's cybersecurity. We're at war. Cybercrime is expected to cost the world $6 trillion annually by 2021. The U.S. government has declared this a battlefield. So in return, companies are increasing their security, as they should. They're putting more and more layers of security around everything. Their people, the processes, their technology. But all of this increased security is coming at a cost. And the true cost of this is not financial, it's convenience. So it's like this child seesaw, one side being security, the other side being convenience. And over time, as we've increased security, we're driving down convenience factors, making business harder. Now, the opposite is true as well. Some companies realize this, and they're decreasing security requirements to increase convenience factors, but they're giving into risk, which is really unacceptable. So at BotDoc, we've broken the seesaw. We've increased security to the highest levels while also increasing convenience. And instead of boring you with a discussion, I'm actually going to demo it for you live. So Tracy's offered to help us out. So Tracy, what's your cell phone number? 303-324-7674. All right. Okay, so I could be Tracy's banker, I could be his lender, I could be his insurance agent, I could be his medical practitioner, I could be his HR department, doesn't matter. He is something that I need, and it's sensitive. So he's going to send me a copy of his driver's license, and he's also going to grab something off of Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive or Cloud Drive. And I could have sent him something, actually we're on the wrong slide. I could have sent him something, all right, come on. There we go. He's got something that I need. Again, it's sensitive in nature, and I need it. So Tracy, let me know when you're done. So what's happening is he received a message from me. It opened up a secure portal. He was able to grab something and transport it back. So on this end, we're good, Tracy. I have that here on my end. I won't pull it up for you. You can't see it either. So I have those documents on my end. Now, what's great about what happened, I was able to reach out and grab something from Tracy and pull it back, secure and encrypted without imposing anything foreign on him. No PINs, no passwords, no logins, no accounts to log into, no apps or no software. And that link in the container that transported it, it's evaporated. So BotDoc is being used in this capacity for remote document collection and data collection. It's replacing fax machines for companies. But here's the great thing. Now that we've had larger clients using it, they realize that security can be convenient. And they said, we want to bake this into our platforms. So now with the API, imagine an employee at a bank or at an institution, they can now initiate a request from inside their portal to reach out and grab something from Joe Smith Consumer and pull it right back into his account, just as if he had logged in and done it himself, but he never had to log in and do it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future of the consumer experience. And I'm going to leave you with one thing. If you remember anything from today, I want it to be this. There is a difference between sharing and sending. Sharing in the traditional sense is two parties on the same platform simultaneously sharing data back and forth. Now, although this is needed, over 90% of the time, when that sharing requirement is imposed, guess what? All you really need to do is send. Sending now with BotDoc is removing that one player from the equation, and this party on the system can now remote collect and send, making it easier. Ladies and gentlemen, as you go back to your businesses, your companies, I want you, as you look at your business processes, your people, and your technology, if you are imposing a sharing requirement on a situation where all you need to do is send, your business is not effective or efficient as it should be, and it's actually less secure. And I want you to think about BotDoc.
Thanks a lot, Carl. So that concludes the pitches today. We're going to show a quick video. In that time, while the video is running, please go through the Lineuper app and vote for your favorite startup. We will give them an award, and yeah, thank you.
I was tired of being led by an industry that profits from the insecurity that I was feeling, and I wanted to change that.
The perfect world is going to be one in which cybersecurity is right hand of the company.
These two concepts here, cyber insurance and cyber warranties, are going to dictate the entire market of cybersecurity, and they will affect the lives of everybody working in this space.
In the future, we see a lot of large corporate hacks, but I think the greatest danger facing the world of cybersecurity is the Internet of Things. Refrigerator manufacturers know everything there is to know about refrigerators, but they know absolutely nothing about cybersecurity. We have to educate these companies.
Cybersecurity touches every aspect of the business, from HR to legal to planning to project management. And if it isn't involved and those individuals aren't trained in cybersecurity and understanding that as a priority, it's never going to be as effective.
We're very excited to announce our new cybersecurity program launching in Q1.
We're here to present CryptoMove's new innovation and how our technology can enable data protection and change the paradigm for enterprises as they attempt to protect their data.
The startups provide us a sandbox of ways of how to grow technologies that we will be using soon in a way that's not something that large organizations are capable of doing at this point.
Some of the best ideas come from the startup world, and the needs are all around when we look at cybersecurity. So innovation is the very best place to start. There are no constraints, there are no limits.
Plug and Play is just a phenomenal organization that can help startups to find good potential customers, good mentors, good potential investors. At CryptoMove, for instance, we just started working with BNP Paribas, which was an introduction made by Plug and Play. And so we know that Plug and Play works, that the ecosystem plugs you in to the largest organizations in the world and gets you real paying contracts and customers. So that's why we're very excited about this program.
Well, great. We've got the votes in. I should get the gift. And I am very excited to announce the winner of today's pitch session, and that is Dispel. So, Ian, congratulations. Round of applause. I'm not sure what's in here, but it's heavy, so congratulations.
It is heavy. Thank you.
Oh, let's take a photo. Oh, all right. So that basically sums up the expo for cybersecurity. Just a few final notes. We're continuously looking for new corporate partners. So if you're interested in joining the program, please connect with me. I'll be wandering around all day. If you have a startup in mind that is in the cybersecurity space, send me their information. We're constantly looking for new companies for batch 2. And yeah, thank you all very much for being here today. There's food outside. The cybersecurity startups will be in the game room if you want to have a quick one-on-one session with them. They have tables with their logos set up. So thank you all very much for being here today.